Welcome to the Health Science Podcast, sponsored by the National Health Association. I'm your host, Dr. Frank Sabatino, and I'm delighted today to have as my guest Dr. Scott. Dr. Harrington is an osteopathic physician, board certified in lifestyle medicine and family medicine. He's the founder of Vegan Primary Care, which is really dedicated to making available a nice vegan doc for those people who are really trying to live and go plant-based and have someone they can really lean on and trust as a physician, which I think is a fantastic thing. So Scott, welcome. It's so nice to meet you. Welcome to the Health Science Podcast, brought to you by the National Health Association, the oldest organization in the world championing the extraordinary benefits of a whole plant food diet and healthy lifestyle, as well as water-only fasting. We believe that health results from healthful living and focus on evidence-based science that promotes the health of you and your loved ones, as well as the health of all animals and the environment. We feature experts from a cross-section of disciplines within the plant nutrition, vegan, psychological, environmental, and animal compassion sectors. I'm your host, Dr. Frank Sabatino, the NHA's Director of Health Education.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's a real honor to be here today.
Well, yeah, I want to get a little bit into your background because it's kind of a varied background that led you to kind of where you are. Go back. I know you went through osteopathic training and all of that, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. But what were some of the early, aha moments for you that kind of goaded you or directed you into where you are now? I mean, what turned you on to wanting to go plant-based and so on and so forth?
I think it starts back with my mom. My mom was always struggling with weight, a little bit overweight, and just typical American obsession of trying to be lean and this kind of thing led me to read various diet books and things. Even as a kid, I was interested. I knew I wanted to be in medicine. I knew I wanted to be a healer, and so. But I had always, I'd always assumed that you need to have, quality protein, and this kind of myth was really held me back for a long time. I even read the book Healthy at 100, John Robbins' book. I had been exposed to McDougall's writings and this kind of thing, and yet it's kind of like when you hear the message, it's like water off a duck's back until something happens, something kind of gets you paying attention. And for me, what that was that I had gained 1 or 2 pounds a year. And then by the time I was 35, I needed to lose weight because here I am in active duty in the Army, and they make you run. And I needed to be lean, and so I tried to lose weight and use a portion controlled diet and exercise a lot. And I felt hungry. I felt starved. I felt, when you're not eating a bulky diet, then you're very hungry and you feel deprived. And so that is when someone told me about the plant-based diet and told me about the movie Forks Over Knives. That was in 2012. I watched that movie and all the dominoes fell and everything just fell into line. And I realized it was like, it was like smacked me awake. And so
through that time, were you, while you were in the service, so you were a physician in the service? Were you actually an active physician in ongoing duty? Because I know you were deployed for several years in Afghanistan. I read that, and we'll talk a little bit about that because I got the impression that there were some very profound experiences connected to that, which then fed into some of the ways you look at helping people too. So I want to talk a little bit about that. But you were actually an Army physician, or was it the Army that you were in?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Army family doc. The Army, they sent me through West Point for undergrad and then through Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine. So I became a DO all through the Health Profession Scholarship Program through the Army program.
Wow. Okay, cool.
So, I mean, the Army has been a great experience for me, and I've served with lots of great individuals, and so I'm actually still in the Army Reserves, in the U.S. Army Medical Corps Army Reserves, and so I still get to serve, and it's really a sense of pride for me. But so coming at it when you're in the Army, it's all about performance. It's
Right.
all about, how could I be better, faster, stronger? And it was a special forces soldier who told me about the plant-based diet. And he was performance oriented, and had been in the Rangers and special forces. So when this person came at me and told me, I was, after failing to lose weight, I was ready to hear the message. And
Well, that triggers something in my brain, because when you think about the intensity of those guys in special forces, you think about like really macho dudes that would never really consider just a fruit and vegetable kind of based diet. So do you find in your experience that more and more of those special forces guys are embracing this way of doing things, or was that really a remarkable exception in your experience?
Well, honestly, I mean, it's still not the norm. It's
Right.
not the norm, But this person was a physician's assistant and had worked closely with other plant-based physicians who had read the evidence, and they say, "Hey, the evidence is in support of plant-based diet." And you got to hand it to these individuals who are really into performance this way. They're willing to go. They're look outside the box, I guess you could
Right.
say.
Right.
And so I think that's where he was coming from, and thank goodness he did, because but it is true, there's a lot of machismo, and the vegan diet, it's that's something that's sort of an antithesis of this, like,
Right. Right.
macho. But that's like the movie Game Changers. I was hoping that after Game Changers it would really dispel that kind of those myths, and that everyone would be vegan. But it's impressive of how slow things
Yeah,
take
well,
to.
but it is true when you look at men like him in that kind of a profession or that kind of work, and you look at athletes, they are always looking for that little extra edge. You know that because that's what
Right.
drives them. Performance is what drives them. So anything that can give them a little edge, that's why a lot of like long distance runners embrace this, because all of a sudden they could do these ultra marathon runs and do them with much more ease, and recovery time was so much faster, and there was so much less pain and inflammation, embracing this
Oh
plant
yeah.
way of living. So, all of that would give them a certain kind of edge. So, yeah, I could see where some of those people would want to try that, thinking, yeah, maybe this is going to really dramatically improve my performance. Talk to me about your experience in the armed forces, because I know, and we all know that, people come out of that many times scarred, injured, they have PTSD, things of that nature. And I gather that from your experience, it gave you a unique way to look at that and probably integrate how you actually help people dealing with those situations. So, can you talk a little bit to your experience with that, and how that has kind of influenced how you're able to really work and help people going through those situations?
Absolutely. I think this kind of goes back to, as a primary care provider, you're trying to kind of ingratiate yourself with the patient. You're trying to basically, hey, I'm like you. I'm like you. I understand what you're going through. I experience the same things, and and it was a key component of being a provider for the military, is going through the same experiences that the soldiers are going through, and a shared experience. And one of the things that helps, I think, with PTSD is for is helping the patient understand that this is a normal response to super physiologic stimuli. Like, it's a
Right.
normal response to very traumatic stimuli, and that no matter, I try to relate it to people who get in a car wreck or people who get in a fight, how they can remember things almost like time slowed down,
Right.
and you're setting in these memories. Very very strong stimuli create very strong memories, and so the first thing that I'm trying to do is to help the patient understand that that they're normal, that they're normal. They were just in a very traumatic situation, and so I think this helps. But it goes like with so many things in primary care. Whether it's from rashes to,
Right.
plantar fasciitis or whatever. Oh yeah, that's normal. It helps people feel comfortable.
Well, I'm here with Dr. Scott Harrington, the founder of Vegan Primary Care, which we're going to talk about. We're going to take a very short break for our sponsor, the National Health Association, and we'll be right back. You're listening to the NHA Health Science Podcast. Dr. Frank Sabatino here. Are you ready for an extraordinary adventure that combines relaxation, exploration, and vibrant health? Then set your sails for the NHA plant-exclusive cruises. Imagine cruising through exotic destinations, savoring delectable plant-based cuisine, and engaging in rejuvenating activities, all while surrounded by like-minded individuals passionate about health and wellness. These cruises offer more than just a vacation. They offer an opportunity to immerse yourself in the NHA's principles of healthy living. And they rank incredibly high on the ratings of eco-friendly cruise lines. We all know how important our oceans are, and our cruise partner, Windstar, is fully committed to this. Join us aboard our upcoming plant-exclusive cruises and experience the synergy of health and leisure. Delight in gourmet SOS-free meals prepared by talented chefs. Attend informative workshops and enjoy the serenity of the sea, all tailored to nourish your body, mind, and spirit. For more details and to reserve your spot on our next adventure, visit healthscience.org and click the link under Travel. Don't miss this chance to indulge in a wellness retreat like no other. Elevate your well-being and make memories that will last a lifetime. And remember, your feedback matters. Please take a moment to leave a rating and a review wherever you're listening to the NHA Health Science Podcast. I'm Dr. Frank Sabatino, your host. Now, back to the show. Welcome back to the Health Science Podcast. I'm here with Dr. Scott Harrington, osteopathic physician, founder of Vegan Primary Care. You know, you talked about that aha moment through Forks Over Knives. Was it a really startling discovery to realize that, you know, kind of up to that point, you were really operating kind of like a disease manager, which is unfortunately what happens in a lot of medical care, rather than providing true health care and getting at root causes? So how was that awakening for you when you kind of said, oh my God, this is what I've been doing. This is what I kind of should be doing. How did you bridge that gap, and how did that affect your consciousness at that particular time?
Wow. I mean, where do I start with this? This is what it's all about, I guess. Some of the things that really struck me were the calorie density diagram, where they show the stomach filled with the plant-based food, and that was kind of an aha moment. And then seeing, you know, Dr. Campbell talk about turning on the cancer genes with the higher protein content, animal protein content. It was whey or casein protein in the studies that he was talking about. And then Forks Over Knives was such a good movie because it showed, like clinically, it showed several people who are on the classic, 10 different medications, going through the diet and then coming off these medications. And as a family doctor, like you said, at this point, I was just managing. I was like a drug dealer. At this point, I hadn't taken anybody off of any medicines, and it was you were just going to continue to tack on more blood pressure pills, more pills for diabetes. And so this made me realize, like, this gave me hope. This gave me hope as a provider that I could actually do what I want to do. And actually coming from the osteopathic background, where, osteopathic medicine was steeped in manipulation and, aligning the spine and avoiding medications, was kind of how it was developed. And the goal is to have, a healthy lifestyle and avoid potentially harmful medications in the first place. So when I saw this and I experienced it myself, then there was no going back. It was a complete convincing. It wasn't like all of a sudden I was hankering for a hamburger or something like that. It was complete. I was convinced completely.
Two questions come to mind. Number one, osteopathy had as you mentioned, such a long history in terms of manipulative medicine and really doing incredible body work on adjusting, vascular supply with certain techniques that they use. And unfortunately, through time, many of the osteopathic training facilities kind of surrendered that and gave that up. I'm gathering that in Philadelphia, where you went to school, they still had that tradition, was still alive and well, and you were exposed to that in your training. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine was one of the oldest osteopathic
Right.
medical schools. And yeah, it is a shame, I guess you could say, that because I guess of the way that osteopathic you have, it's like a double-edged sword or something. They want to be included and seen as equal to
Right.
MDs. Then but at the same time retain their history and their manipulation and trying to use the body, allow the body to heal itself. And so it is true. Most of the time when you go see an osteopathic doctor, you may not notice any difference between MD or DO care.
Right.
They may not do osteopathic manipulation. And it's kind of sad, but it is kind of comes down to time and how much time they're going to spend with the patient and how much time patients are, how much, if you're on insurance, you're trying to increase the throughput of patients and this kind of thing. So
is that to say then that that's a very small part of actually what you do in practice then? Would you say that that's true? Or do you still do some of that in your private practice?
Well, for me, absolutely. Like I'm a telemedicine provider mostly, and so I'm not doing osteopathic manipulation.
No, I get that. Yes.
Yeah, but you can find doctors who kind of focus on the physical aspect and osteopathic manipulation, make that a big part of their practice. Some people, so there's a spectrum. Some people use it. Some family doctors and stuff may use it here or there when they have someone with some low back pain or various conditions. And then other people may not be using it at all. Maybe a surgeon or maybe, like a radiologist or something may not. But it is a big part of our training in medical school. For the first 2 years, it's of the book learning. We also get, different from MD school, we also get the training on hands-on manipulation.
Right. Which is fantastic. It's great.
Which really, it aids in diagnosis. It's really helpful.
Now, and I want to ask you this question because I think it's a kind of an interesting thing that happens when someone like you that has the training that you do, and we interview a number of physicians that go into lifestyle medicine and so on and so forth. So they know the power of the pillars of lifestyle medicine. They know the impact that this can have on health and well-being, but yet you're still dealing with people that are coming to you with health problems that sometimes are oriented toward pharmaceuticals and things of this nature. How do you juggle your decision, actually, when you have a sense that if they would do this, I know that they could avoid having to go that route pharmacologically or whatever, but yet you find yourself in the position where you do have to prescribe to address where they are in this stage of their lives. How do you juggle that feeling in your own consciousness, in your own awareness, in a practice situation? I think it's enlightening for people to hear that.
Right. The goal for a physician, for any healthcare provider is to, one, practice evidence-based medicine. So as best there's always more evidence out there, as best to practice evidence-based medicine. But, when you're running businesses and this kind of thing, the customer's always right, so to speak.
Yeah.
That you want to try to make sure the patient feels like they're heard, that they're supported, and they get their questions answered, and they get the treatment that they're looking for. So a physician is a teacher, and so the hardest part is when patients come in and they want something, they expect something and want something that is like inappropriate, and
right.
So, there are many examples. The biggest example is for viral colds, common cold illnesses. Antibiotics are not helpful in general and can be potentially harmful. There's, hideous antibiotic-associated diarrhea, C. difficile, colitis that could potentially be caused by antibiotics that you take. And so trying to spend a lot of time in teaching and helping people understand what would be best for them. And then another one, for instance, is like pink eye. Pink eye a lot of times is just viral pink eye and goes away on its own. And so, I mean, these are just simple examples of that.
Yeah. Well, Scott, let's talk about your baby, your passion. What about the evolution of vegan primary care? How did that come into play? How did you get, what were the steps toward you fashioning that model and really putting that into play for yourself?
Well, I got lucky. I feel like I got lucky because telemedicine really took off after the pandemic. After COVID, after the pandemic. But I was already doing this. I got out of active duty in 2015, and I started to work for Tampa General, a local entity here in the Tampa area where I live. And I was spending a lot of time away from my family, and I was thinking to myself, I was hoping to spend more time with my family when I got out of the active duty. I had been on long deployments and things like this. So I became kind of jaded with this. I was like, why am I doing this? Why don't I work from home? And so I got hired by a company called American Well, which is a telemedicine provider similar to Teladoc or Doctors on Demand.
Right.
And I was going to kind of take it easy, I guess you could say, be with my family more. And so what this did was they used me as a staff doctor, where they got me set up with multiple state licenses. And so I worked with Amwell for 2 years, and then I was able to leave Amwell. And right about the same time, COVID hit, and I was looking for honestly, it was kind of working with American Well was great for being able to work from home, but there was no continuity of care with the patients. And it was, new patients with like cold complaints and things that were kind of simple. And so I wasn't feeling fulfilled medically, and I didn't feel fulfilled like I was helping people like I could and talking about lifestyle medicine because I was joking around. People would come in with a cold and I would be like, well, have you heard about the plant-based diet? They would stub their toe and I'd be like, have you heard that the plant-based diet is good for your toe? And it was just kind of ridiculous, honestly. So I was really happy to be able, when the pandemic happened, I was able to open up a telemedicine practice. I was worried to open up one locally. I was worried that, vegan primary care would have, not had very many patients if there's only a small percentage of the population. I wanted to open it up as a vegan practice. And so by having those state licenses in multiple states, I was able to kind of open it up to nationwide.
That opened it up for you. Yeah. So Scott, give people the location, the URL where they can find you if they want to pursue you and have time with you. Where do they find you? Where do they go?
Absolutely. Yes. So veganprimarycare.com, veganprimarycare.com. I do have a pretty small social media presence, vegan primary care on Facebook and vegan primary care on Instagram. But you can go to my website. It's easy to make appointments this way, to book straight through the website. And so you can read all about my services that I provide. You can see the states that I'm currently licensed, 16 states. And also, if you go onto Google reviews, if you go to Google in the Tampa area and you Google vegan primary care, you can see reviews and that kind of thing. So don't take it from me. See what the reviews say.
Yeah, no, the reviews were great. I went through some of them. I looked at the site. It's a great site. It's very accessible. People can get to you very easily. But I gather that you're not only just doing the online stuff, you're still doing inpatient face-to-face practice too in the Tampa area, yes?
Right. I do right north of St. Petersburg, Florida, in Pinellas Park. I have a clinic that I go to. I sublet there so I can see patients 1 day a week in person. So you can see me in the flesh. I am a real person. I'm not just a AI avatar.
Give me in your experience now, because you've reinvented yourself. You've done this online. Give me the pros and the cons of doing the kind of practice that you do. I mean, the pros are more people can get to you from all different kinds of places. I gather that. What have you found to be things that you wish could be a little bit different with the online stuff? If anything, if nothing, then nothing. But if anything that could change, what would you change if you could? The way it operates.
There's one of the things I'll tell people is that, hey, if you always are seeing a telemedicine provider, you should have your own vital signs equipment. So I mean, be able to weigh yourself. They have blood pressure cuffs now. They're $30, so you can take your own blood pressure. So some basic vital signs is helpful. But that being said, the majority of the time that people spend in most doctors' office is not on the exam, and the
Right.
exam over time has sort of atrophied in most doctors. Most of the time you're seeing the doctor kind of click away at the computer because they're ordering things or they're documenting what you're saying. And I can't say enough about the positive aspects of telemedicine. Mainly because the patient doesn't have to get into their car and drive and face traffic, and they can be in the comfort of their own home. And, I guess I wouldn't say there's not any downsides, but I can't listen to your heart. I can't listen
Right.
to a lung exam and this kind of thing. But believe it or not, the majority of medical care is driven by the history. And that's so I rely on specialists, and if need be, like we can have people see cardiology or
Right.
gastroenterology if needed. But kind of the primary care doctor is almost like the traffic cop of doctors, where this doctor says this doctor says that.
Right.
What makes sense. So I kind of play that role, and I enjoy that role. I'm not a genius. I'm a sort of a jack of all trades, but expert in none, other than lifestyle medicine and the fact that I've been vegan now for a long time, and I can give people those experiences.
Yeah, so that's a good point. I mean, when you talk about people that are using you services and dealing with you and coming to you, I'm assuming many of them who want the kind of input that you have as a vegan doc probably have other care providers that they also see in person, whether it's specialists or other physicians that may be in the home environment where they are, especially if someone's seeing you from a different state while you're in Florida. So the question that comes to my mind is that, many of these docs, being the managers that they are not necessarily open to the kind of information you're sharing with the patients that you're seeing on telemedicine. So have you seen where that becomes any kind of conflict or confusion for the patient itself, where they're getting maybe what may appear as some conflicting information? Not in a bad way that you're giving conflict, but there is some conflict because you may be giving them the feeling that they may not necessarily need to be on that medication that disease manager physician feels that they got to stay on the rest of their life. And so that could be kind of a bit of a conflict. Have you experienced that?
Oh, all the time. That is a problem. As you want to be a team player, but when the other team is not, it doesn't feel like they're on the same team sometimes.
Right.
When you're trying to lead a lifestyle practice, like for instance, none of my patients want to be on statins, even though there's reasonably good evidence about statins benefits in certain indications, like secondary prevention for heart attack versus primary. Things like lifelong PPI, acid medications that the gastroenterology societies recommend lifelong therapies if you have certain conditions like Barrett's esophagus and this kind of thing. And so I wouldn't go against those recommendations unless there's clear evidence to suggest against it. But sometimes these recommendations don't catch up to the science. And so I guess what I'd like to say is I'm not going outside of evidence. If there's lifestyle medicine evidence that says you can be without the medication, then a lot of times the other doctors are in the kind of the old school mentality are not keeping up with what's the latest.
Yeah, I sense in just talking with you now and even on your site that you have a kind of a big vision of all the aspects and pillars of lifestyle medicine that are actually important. things that foster resilience, the stress response management approaches, and understanding, the emotional and psychological components, the importance of healthy relationships and community connection. So is that something that you find you're able to counsel effectively in the telemedicine way? Or is there other ways that you feel you need to kind of approach that?
No, absolutely. Telemedicine works with that. When the sort of the epitome of mental health type care, the psychological arts, psychiatry and psychology, these folks do way more telemedicine than the normal providers do, and they were kind of some of the first to adopt it. Because people feel comfortable talking in their own home with their provider and having counseling, so to speak. So yeah, that works well. I guess there could be benefit, like the walk with your doctor program and things like that. I mean, about the physical aspect, there could be some benefits. Like you have had fasting centers in the past and this kind of thing, and so I mean that would have been quite impressive. That would have been, I would have loved to work in some place like that. That would be quite engaging with the patients. But as for the telemedicine, I guess there could be some limitations for sure.
Yeah. So, and those pieces are important, emphasizing, activity and stress management and so on. Do you have any way that you link or hook up people to doing things in a practical way? Meaning, do you do any kind of food presentation programs or cooking demos? Or are you hooked up in any way with anything where the person that sees you can go the next step and actually get a practical understanding of how to do these things rather than just getting the cognitive input from you about what's important? Is there any of that you have in play in the kind of work that you do?
Well, that is a great point. In the past, I had utilized something called a Get to Your Goal program, where I had patients meet once a week, and we would all meet on Zoom, and we would go over practical aspects of weight loss and stuff. But that has currently been put on hold. Right. So I don't honestly have that going on at the moment. And another thing that kind of fell through was there was going to be a program where I had invited on folks to do exercise therapy and like exercise classes, cooking classes and stuff. But I didn't have a huge response to it. And so I think in the future, I'm going to have to do, because that would have been a real time participation. So I think in the future that in order to do those kind of classes, I'll have to create like a YouTube channel and do those classes and do it sort of not in real time, but allow people to have those types of.
With your background, do you end up caring for a lot of people in the armed forces? Is that something that they find you because of your background? Is that something that comes to you that way because of your past experience?
Yes, I've had lots of patients who have retired the military, and they've started to do RV. I mean, several of my patients have this scenario where they're in multiple states, and so they've used me because of my telemedicine capability, and so that's been funny. Yeah, some people reach out to me because of my military aspect, but mostly it's folks who are interested in the plant-based diet and vegan diet. They have a child that wants to go vegan, and they're worried. They're worried. Oh my gosh, they're going to have deficiencies, or people who are curious, plant curious. So I have to kind of meet people where they're at and try to help dispel myths and help get them comfortable with the idea of going plant-based and this kind of thing.
Many times when we speak or anybody speaks and shares information, many times the energy we radiate, what we kind of what comes out of us, many times affects people more than even the words that we're saying. So when I see you, you look fit, you look healthy. So how does Scott take care of him? How do you practice what you preach? How do you take care of you? What do you do?
Well, I team up with my next door neighbor who is interested in running. He's a runner, and so I've been doing the running for it just really reduces my stress, and so I've been doing sort of low intensity long runs, I'm hoping to do a marathon at the end of the year. We want to try my brother-in-law and I want to go to the marathon in Marathon, Greece. So we want to try to do that. Yeah.
Wow,
So,
that's cool. That'll be a cool thing. Yeah,
that would
absolutely.
be, it was like a once in a lifetime thing. And just, I'm really lucky. It's kind of like we have a compound. My wife's an identical twin, and she has the twin and the brother-in-law have moved 2 houses down. So we share cooking responsibilities. We batch cook and things like this.
That's kind of cool.
That it's
Scott, in terms of your work, is there any on the horizon? Is there anything you'd like to kind of move toward and do? Is there any way that you look at maybe expanding the evidence base, or is there something that you want to tap into that you're not kind of tapped into right now, but you see it kind of as a goal for your particular future?
Well, I want to keep, I mean, things are changing all the time, and there's more and more evidence. I know that the anti-aging stuff is getting, I mean, there's more and more stuff about genetics and life extension and this kind of thing. So I'm going to be having my, ears to the ground about that kind of stuff. But also I want to get involved with more speaking and kind of get more word out there about vegan primary care and this kind of thing. And so just being a part of the community.
Well, that's cool. I think that's beautiful. As we kind of wind this down, are there any final words or a message you'd like to share with the audience out here?
Well, don't give up. If you've started the plant-based diet, don't give up, and get yourself the information. Check out information to get yourself of mental clarity. And so once you set your mind to it, it's harder to go off the vegan train. And I like to be very practical. I call it, if it's not easy, you'll eat sleazy, right? So just try to stick to the easy plan and stick to it and do it well. And if you need a vegan doctor, I am here for you in 16 states. You can see me at Vegan Primary Care. Check it out, and I'll be there for you.
I can't thank my guest, Dr. Scott Harrington, enough for being with us today, sharing his insight, sharing his experience. And again, yes, if you need a primary care doc that's sensitive to your vegan path or your desire to go plant-based, he's your guy. Check it out. You can see his location scrolling across the screen in these show notes. And I really want to thank the people that have joined us today, because without you, we can't do what we do. And I really want to thank you for being part of this very active, healthy community. And on behalf of the National Health Association, I'm your host, Dr. Frank Sabatino, and I truly look forward to being with you on the next episode of the Health Science Podcast. Thank you, Dr. Scott. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
You've been listening to the Health Science Podcast, brought to you by the National Health Association. Thank you for joining us today and for your commitment to evidence-based health science that backs a whole food, plant-exclusive lifestyle and contributes to the well-being of all people, animals, and our environment. I'm your host, Dr. Frank Sabatino. Be sure to leave a rating and a review, and we'll see you on the next show.